Got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander.
Welcome to episode 11 of Coordinated Fire, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast where we combine a Wookiee and a moose.
Okay, all right.
How's everyone doing?
What does that look like?
Right.
I need to see this now.
I think Kyle's applying it to me.
I was.
Yeah. Okay.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Lovely. It's a wonderful 20-degree day here in Vancouver.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Quite lovely.
I know you guys are having a brutal heat wave.
Yeah.
After heat wave, after heat wave.
I hate
Really,
working
really bad
outside
today.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Titus, I do not envy you. All right, we have some incredible guests on today. Geoff, Li, thank you guys for joining us. Let's take a bit of time for some introductions before we get too far. Geoff, I'll throw it over to you first.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, my name is Geoff Moore, also known as Moose Baka on Longshanks and other places where I play and talk about Shatterpoint. I've been playing the game since it came out, and I come to Shatterpoint from playing X-Wing before this a lot, and then playing all like Kill Team, A Song of Ice and Fire, Marvel Crisis Protocol, lots of Underworlds, like a little bit of 40k, a little bit of AOS, but I don't love big grand army games. I'm a much bigger like skirmish and downside games. And I've been playing in the Vancouver area. I started the community here in June of 23 when the game launched with Li and a few others, Matt Bronson, who many know as well. And so we started the community up here. Obviously, Matt left for Europe, and then we've sort of kept it going. And so that's sort of me here.
Yeah, I think your story is pretty similar to ours, which we've shared with everyone before, and just jumped in when the game started and foundation for that community, right? So,
Yep.
Li, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Lee. I go by Rise Over Run, and I run a fair number of the Shatterpoint events here in BC. I suppose as far as my miniature background, let's see. I used to play War Machine competitively. I was never very good at it, but I did play it competitively. And then I got into Legion, a little bit of Armada. I actually did play a little bit of X-Wing when it first came out, but I think it got away from me. But I always liked it. It was a great game. And yeah, I think when the Shatterpoint community kind of started up, we were looking for people to sort of like take points and run that. And yeah, Geoff kind of roped me in, and I've been here ever since.
No, that's amazing. And we've talked a few times on the cast that it really takes those pillars in the community to build, to keep people coming back out. So we're going to chat about that a little bit as we go through. So clearly you both have some background in miniature gaming, and that's kind of what brought you here. How big of an impact was Star Wars in that choice?
Wow.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say you got Lee's tattoo there, and then you got this. Oh wait, wrong leg. Hold on, this tattoo right here.
Awesome. Okay.
You know, yeah. So, yeah, I would say substantial.
Yeah, very substantial.
Yeah. I mean, I would love like tactics games for some other IPs I enjoy, but they don't get licenses well, and they don't have companies that spend the time to put in the work to get here, and so it's like, you know, I will not be upset that I get to play Star Wars games.
Yeah, exactly. I feel very much the same.
You are in good company with some Star Wars fans here. This is my first Star Wars miniatures game.
The pile of Legion behind you says otherwise.
That's new.
That's all new.
That is new exploration.
That's old print.
Yeah, that was local store clearing some stuff out,
okay.
and I am very tempted with all the new edition and new stuff coming out. So
It turns out real objectives make for a great army game. Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
I am also very hesitant in the full army game after coming from years of 40k, and I kind of same sentiment you said, that I just have fallen in love with skirmish games. I also I play MCP, Kill Team, just jumping into that too. So
I see, the real thing I like to articulate is I love painting full army games. My best friend is a very competitive 40k player. He came up here and went 6-0 at our GT for the World Qualifier.
nice.
And he's a former War Machine weekend champion from 2014, so like very accomplished War Machine player. But like talking to him about what it takes to be at the competitive top of 40k is just like, oh no, thank you.
I do not have the time
The
for that.
amount of work is just like, I'm not that smart, and I don't have the time. Like, can't. And the amount of armies he owns and paints, you're just like, no, this is a hobby. I'm supposed to have fun. So yeah.
100%.
It does feel painful sometimes. You know, those top level 40K guys.
Oh, man.
You talk to them, and it's like, do you actually enjoy this?
I don't know how they do
Because
it.
when you do 40K at that level, Jeff, you're right. That's all you do. You do
Yeah.
40K at that level.
Yeah, no, it's true. It like consumed his life because he grew up playing 40K, got into War Machine, then X-Wing, and then went back to it. And it's completely consumed his hobby life.
The more
it's
competitive I approached 40K, the less I had fun.
I believe
Almost
that.
definitively, but I
believe
also
that.
can't not be competitive.
Yeah,
That's not in
exactly.
me.
Yeah,
Some people like the grind though. Like some people
Yep.
are just wired that way.
Yeah.
Respect to them.
Oh, all the
sure.
power to them, for
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
I can't do it.
All right, on the Star Wars note, what are your favorite characters? Lee, I'll throw it to you first.
Me first. Well, I mean, I'm going to say that it may be somewhat biased by the recent Andor series that came out,
Okay.
but Cassian, God, Cassian. I've always had such a thing for, like, obviously I love the Star Wars universe, but I've always had a real soft spot in my heart for characters who were just kind of like in the background and were so pivotal to making things happen. And I think the Andor series did such a wonderful job of putting a spotlight on like all the little people that made the rebellion happen. So like, yeah, Cassian kind of stands out for me.
Stories outside of Space Wizards. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, what about you?
yeah. Well, first, I mean, thanks, Lee, for the most basic answer you could ever give in 2025. Really appreciate that. Yeah, it was a good
I
job.
love that we have two friends on. This is great.
Oh,
I don't know if I would use that word, but anyways,
Wait.
I would say that like in all of Star Wars, the character I always loved as a kid was Arvel Krynid. And for those who are not like super deep
Yep.
cuts, that is the Green Wing leader pilot who crashes his A-wing into the Executor that leads to it crashing into the Star Destroyer or the Death Star. And it's literally just because as a kid I thought A-wings were cool.
That's
I thought his helmet was cool, and it just was this incredible moment of like my ability at a very young age. I remember profoundly watching the movie going, oh, he's sacrificing himself. Like that's what sacrifice is. And my brain learned what that word meant in the context of fiction from and I literally didn't know his name till I was, I think, in like late high school. I was reading a Star Wars trivia book, as cool kids do. And like playing by myself, and then like got a question wrong about his name and realized that his name was Arvel Krynid. And I tried for years to make him good in X-Wing and never did. But I think Arvel Krynid is definitely it. And there's a really good Arvel Krynid webcomic out there.
Interesting.
That's just like it's like a long vertical comic just about his day at the Battle of Endor and basically waking up with his partner and then like going up and leading eventually to his death. And that like there is a person behind that who left behind. Yeah, so
That's awesome.
Arvel Krynid is my probably favorite character in Star Wars.
I am confident that's the most deep cut answer I've ever received for that question.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I love it. Moving into Shatterpoint and a similar question, what are your guys' favorite primaries?
You want to go first, Jeff?
No, you go first.
I mean, I'm absolutely going to borrow something from Matt Bronson here. Although, to be fair, I don't know if Han is General Solo is his favorite character at this point, but I've really liked Han, if only because he's someone who does a lot of team movement. He's got a lot of tricks, and like I think at Shatterpoint, it is like, don't get me wrong, it's great to roll a bucket of dice and tell your opponent you just did 13 damage or some insane number like that. But I find that a lot of my games, the times where I feel very satisfied with my lines of play, have very little to do with like, oh, I rolled a bucket of dice and got great results. It's more to do with like, if I move these two people and do this and maybe squeeze out 2 attacks and put myself in a position where if you score a momentum on your turn, I'll be able to just win the struggle. Like that's very satisfying to me. So like Han definitely takes a top spot for me. General, so to be clear.
He's so
Love
much
that
fun.
because I think Han is actually an incredible primary, and you can always tell when someone's put the reps in. Because wow, the performance difference between when you have and when you haven't is it's a huge skill gap, right? You know, Han's one that you listen to tier lists and you'll often hear, you know, low B, C area, and then out of nowhere Han wins Worlds or a GT or whatever, because there is some magic there, right?
Well,
Absolutely.
it's all these hyper competitive players just jamming Han and Chewie and not looking at any alternatives.
Yeah, I if we have room for a rant at the end, I have a rant about tier lists, which I'd love to go through with you. It's 2 minutes, but I have a soapbox about tier lists that I really want to get into at some point.
And he will brook no conversations.
I think, but to your point, Kyle, I think Han is in the pantheon of characters who have some of the highest skill ceiling. And it really rewards players who could read board state, who could read board positioning, who can think about this wound I'll move to here, that wound to me, I'll then attack there. And players who put in the reps, like you were saying, and are able to do that can really express that. And he has that high skill ceiling. So I'm completely disinterested in Han. Because that's requires a degree of mastery and hard work that, as we've discussed, I'm not a 40k player. I don't want to do that. That's not what this is about.
Perfect transition, Geoff.
So I will not be talking about this character today when we go over favorite primaries, but I think Princess Leia Charming to the Last is probably my favorite primary in the game. Again, it relates back to like why I play this game and enjoy it, which is that my mom was the one who got me into science fiction, and Leia was always a cool character who was not a damsel in distress, right? She shoots the trash chute to jump inside. She's like, I know what the fuck we're doing. And having a character that translates that to the board state, where she's moving other people around, she's orchestrating, people get hit, she's running over like, what are you doing? Shooting them back. Like, it just captures the idea of this absolute badass warrior in the game well. And then also, she was a pivotal part of me getting to win my first big event in Shatterpoint. And it was very much so her. And like, having Rebel Operative, people not understanding how powerful Dash Shoot was in a meta that didn't have a lot of steadfast. And it was just... her ability to dash, shoot, push one was just crippling in games. And so I think
incredible.
I think she's just by far my favorite primary in the game.
Yeah, she's definitely, like, I would say top 5 for me, easy. Yeah. She's the thing that pulls me back into Rebels regularly. So I totally get that. But I think to a great point, I think there is a decent floor for Leia. She does a lot. Mm-hmm. She moves a lot. She does a lot.
Yeah.
There's skill ceiling, but it's not as high as Han's. Like, yeah. You're putting her on the board, and you're like, this piece does many things. Will solve game for me. I will get to figure them out. It will be good.
And a lot of it's free.
Yeah, exactly. And I will pay no points.
Yeah, like the pre-rebalance, the Leia Mando list that gained some popularity was one of my favorite lists I've ever played. It's still great. I think Cassian replaces a bit of that list, but it's good.
It's very, very good. But it's for another podcast.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit. You guys spoke a little bit about being kind of that part of that starting foundation for the BC Shatterpoint community. Tell us a little bit about it. Where do you guys play? How have you kept it consistent?
Yeah, so we play on Thursdays at Magic Stronghold. I'll get why that happens in a second. But so yeah, we play on Thursdays at Magic Stronghold. The third Saturday of every month since June of 2023 has been our monthly tournament. We have not missed one except for December of 23 and December of 24. And
December's hard.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think it landed on Christmas one year actually, or very close to it. But otherwise, we do it every month. Our monthlies range from, I think our smallest ever was 10, maybe 12 players, but our biggest was last month. We had 20, just like a monthly tournament, which was super dope. And it's about that consistency. We also do tournaments every 2 to 3 months at a place called Richmond Rerolled, which will also very fortunately be hosting our GT on November 1st and 2nd, I think, this year. Yeah. And so that's another store that's in Richmond. It's owned by another community member, and it's a really large space, very accessible, good parking, good food nearby, all that kind of stuff, but out of the way for weekly game nights. And so Vancouver has a lot of very interesting challenges that you would face similar to the GTA, but not as much in the surrounding band of the GTA. Yeah. Which is that in Vancouver, if you're asking someone to cross a bridge, you have basically committed a mortal sin, and they will never speak to you again. And so you need to have game stores that are like basically in this very specific corridor between Vancouver and the Fraser River, and then crossing a bridge, because it truly will like double or triple the time it takes to get to that location, because the bottlenecks of traffic are those bridges. And so what happened was the first year, when I moved here in June of 21, the community, for basically all tabletop games outside of 40K and AOS, had been decimated by COVID. They were completely disparately organized and all this. And actually, not to plug a different podcast, but I go in a long story on this on the Danger Room podcast, which is a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast, where I explain the story of how we sort of resurrected our community and then have gone on to like grow it out into the PNW sort of broader community, more or less from like Oregon all the way up to now Prince George. As we have local players here who play all the way up in Prince George. But basically that first year, I organized all those monthly events. And I'd done this before in X-Wing and other games and systems like this. And what I did was, as the year was coming to the end, I have a relationship with Magic Stronghold where I actually set the miniature calendar for the store for the year. And then I communicate that calendar to all of the other game stores and say, hey, Magic Stronghold, which is the biggest store, will be running these events on these days for the next 12 months. If you want to run any of these game systems, choose different days and you will get attendance. Which is a system that I did in LA. And anyways, it works out. But as we're getting to the end of the year, I was basically telling the community, like, hey, I can't run this next year. I'm looking to buy a home and we're busy and blah, 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 and I want something else to do. And that was when Lee, who was part of our community, stepped up. And then he sort of took over running it and then really injected a whole bunch of really positive change, which he can go over from his connections to Craving and other stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm actually very, very blessed. I guess this isn't part of the recording, but when we were talking about the different sorts of game stores that exist, I was very fortunate to be an employee at one of our local game stores called Craving for a Game, and they very kindly continue to offer me my store employee discount. Since I've stopped working there. And so they have just been essentially a fount for Shatterpoint materials, which has made up the majority of our prize pool for all of our events. So that's actually been super helpful to just like very consistently and very affordably be able to be like, hey, there's going to be like a couple of new squad boxes, and certainly with the release schedule from AMG, being able to just sort of say, you know, like Kiadi came out this month, and then being able to actually have that in the pool for the players who maybe couldn't afford it or wanted to wait to see how it worked before they bought it. And it gives them something aspirational to go after. And then further to that, what I would say that kind of makes the BC community what it is that we also seem to have just this plethora of incredibly talented artists and the artists and very generous people who like donate either 3D prints or build entire fantastic looking tables or create a bunch of the art materials that eventually get used. So for instance, there's a great artist in our midst, Matt LaRose, who made the little heat map diagrams, which we then started distributing.
We've got some out this way. They are amazing.
So handy.
I will be bringing a new set for the GT in August.
That's awesome because I know people have been asking about them every time I see them.
Yeah. No, they like Matt. Yeah, Matt just shows them off and they always move.
So good. Yeah. And plus he also was responsible for printing like a lot of the early ED trackers and little tokens. We also have Dylan from Time to Nerd. He printed a bunch of really interesting terrain, and I think he actually designs some terrain. You can find it on Etsy. And yeah, like it's just such a lovely giving community. I honestly just feel like I'm just like a relay. I don't actually feel like I do that much. I just happen to be in the room and people are like, here, do you want this? Adding it to the prize pool. Yeah.
No, I think you touched on a great point. I think prizes are a really important piece of getting people out, regular attendance. I look at our community growth in kind of that same time frame, right? And we've had Josh Pound, who's been our local source for 3D printing, and due to just wanting mats and sleeves, I started Tablebound, right? Which having that source of prizing, I think, has driven a lot of growth. Geoff, you were able to come out to the Tablebound Open a few months ago, and I personally, as a player, there's not many events that are able to do that level of prize support, right?
No.
And I think it's really important for getting people out and, driving that community growth. So, Lee, that's amazing.
Yeah. I will mention my one other little thing, which I'm kind of proud of, I guess, is I find that one of the things that I think sometimes can hurt some communities is just the natural flow of metas, right? You're going to get like those lists, which are great. And then you put yourself in this really weird position where it's like, do I play the amazing list and do well, but maybe create some negative play experiences for some people? Or do I intentionally handicap myself? In which case, like, people might think that you're not playing your best, and like it's all just a little fuzzy and kind of a weird situation. And so one of the things that I tried to do when I took over for running most of our local events was I intentionally create these little challenges that go with every monthly event. So, you know, like, you still want to be the first, second, third. You know, you still want to place in the event.
Yeah.
But the challenge this month will be do as many wounds as you can, or bring the least amount of stamina possible.
Yep.
Or the least amount of hit points, I should say, health points. And just like doing that gives people an out to do something that is not in line with the meta. And I think it's actually really encouraged some people to try things that they wouldn't try and sort of go outside of their comfort zone, which just makes for better players.
It also, to Lee's credit, we don't do prizing based on standing. We never have. A really big part of our prizing is it's standing warrants you raffle tickets. And so some months we basically use like a raffle app, and then whoever gets first place in the side event that we do normally gets to pick first prize. And then after that, like, some months we'll give first place 3 tickets, we'll give second 2 tickets, and we'll give third just their 1 extra ticket, and then everyone else gets 1. But other ones, it's just literally raffle goes to the side prize, and the rest of it's just raffled through. And it's a really awesome experience for the newer players who get to come in and suddenly
100%.
get a box or get a mat or get a score tracker, and they're just like, wow, you know, this is amazing. And then the other things that we picked up from our time in X-Wing is, you know, our store orders a lot of OP kits and stuff like that, and we have the relationship where we actually keep the kits once they're opened. So we still have, I think this month we gave away the last holographic Shatterpoint card that we had, which we still had from the 2023 set when we had extras.
Yep.
But we keep all the other holos we have from our GT and everything. And so when new players show up in the community, if they're starting to show up weekly on Thursdays and they show up for a monthly, we normally just sort of give them a bulk of that stuff. We're like, oh, here are the, you know, the old out of print, you know, foils of Mace and Ahsoka and Maul and Cody and that sort of stuff. And that goes a really long way. And then the last thing that Lee and I do, just to sort of pull the curtain back on some of it, and then this will be a great test if any of our newer local players listen. So if you're a new player and you come to one of our monthlies, we determine who you play in the first round.
Yeah.
And often we choose who you play in the second round. And so we intentionally seed your opponent into the first round to being some of our, like, more charming, fun-focused, positive energy players, so that those new players go in and they're going to have that first game experience, win or lose, is going to be really good. And then often by the second round, we're probably going to do the same thing. We'll make sure you're paired against somebody who's the same score as you, but we're really going to seek out that opportunity for you to play someone you don't know who's going to be a really positive play experience. And I say this because I've encouraged some of our other game systems locally to do this, and they haven't. And it has been a really interesting experience to watch some players, like, especially in games like MCP, where if you're inexperienced or so forth, you can get bodied really hard, is watching players come in, set up a table, round 1, they get paired against someone who's, like, placed very well at multiple large MCP events. And at the end of, you know, the first round, 2 of their characters are already dazed, and they're like, I'm down, you know, 6 victory point. Like, what is happening right now?
Not a
like,
great experience.
You're playing Marvel, man, and you're not ready for it. And so we do that. And so Lee and I will actually text during the event or beforehand of like, hey, X person's new this month. Like, who do you have? Like, oh, okay, it looks like Y person showed up. Let's make sure they're paired against them round 1 and so forth. And I think that's really helped people feel comfortable and grow. And we don't, like, after you've been a couple times, we stop doing that. And it's very
100%.
by feel.
Yeah.
But it is a, like, we do that to try to facilitate those sort of new experiences for players.
I really like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna say
I'm a big
that
fan
is
of that.
that
That's
is
cool.
amazing. I am taking mental notes for some of our events. I mean, I think the most amazing thing, guys, is that there are a lot of parallels to what you've just said there to our community as well too. And I think you two, from what you described here, you two are amazing champions of your local community, which I think is an important part of it as well too. Someone to take up that mantle and really care about the people that come out to the events and make sure that their experience is as positive as it can be. And just what you guys are exuding right now is absolutely fantastic.
I appreciate that, Sean, but it's really not us. Like, I could literally give you a laundry list of 10 people in our community who do more for our community. Like, Lee's already mentioned Matt LaRose, who does the 3D prints, the art. everything else, Dylan. Like, and one of the things I say that not because I'm trying to avoid the compliment, but because I think people need to understand that, like, when you're building a community, it's not
takes
you
everyone.
building it. Yeah, it is you are setting up a signpost for other people to start coming around and putting their hand out and go, I think I'd like to be here too. And like, third places are really important. It's a vital part of sort of like a healthy life. And I think a lot of people, when they're in their communities trying to build it, they don't know how to go about doing that. And like, we here in Vancouver support communities in Salmon Arm, Prince George, Victoria, Kamloops, Kelowna, which are small municipalities that do not have the kind of population density, but they still have 4 people getting in a garage once a month and playing games, you know? And so I think it is one of those things of, when I talk a lot to people about how to build communities for these games, so many of them are like, well, I can't start until I have the 3D printer set up and until I have a print shop I can work with and all that. And you're like, it really doesn't. It's like, just
Step one is just
there.
start.
Like, yeah.
Is just do it. Yeah. So, Jeff, I'm glad you brought that full circle, because I completely agree. And our community actually started mainly just myself, Kyle, and Titus playing. We used to play on Tuesdays at Dueling Grounds locally. Had to switch to Thursdays, but just being that consistent piece and getting people involved and just giving people hope that, hey, there's something here, right?
And I like that you pointed out that everyone has to contribute. Like, yeah, you have the people that kind of start things up, but everybody who comes in has to bring something to it. Otherwise, the community doesn't grow.
Well, I mean, but not everybody. Like, they can just show up to
Yeah.
play, right?
Sure.
But like,
Yes.
showing up to play is bringing something, right?
That is.
And I think players who don't want to do that or are like afraid of that, and it is true that, and you'll just find players will just start to fill gaps, right? Because they'll be like, oh, I want this thing, I'm going to start doing this, right? And it's like the magic of all this to me is it like, because I remember moving here in June of 2021. I was moving from Los Angeles. I'd lived there for 10 years. I'd never been to Vancouver before I moved here. And I had multiple friends who were like, you're in your mid-30s? Like, how are you going to make friends? And I was like, that part's easy. Not even worry about it. Like, that, like, 100% the easiest part. And it's true. Like, that's the thing is, as we get older as gamers and as people, like, these things are vital for our mental health. And it's just finding games to sort of collect everyone around is so great. And then people will just solve for it. You just put people together. They're going to create things to make a more inviting environment.
Honestly, I love that. And I actually think that's because, like, moving away from your social circle and your friends can be a very intimidating thing. I had just moved back to Peterborough from Toronto when Shatterpoint launched. Like, literally, like, it was that summer I moved back. I did not know Sean or Titus here before that. This has all been built off of, hey, we want to play this game.
Yeah. And that's amazing. It is so wonderful. And as someone who came and experienced your community not long ago, like, it shows, right? Like, it was a very, so to put context to the viewers. So when was Tablebound open?
May 4th.
May 3rd.
Okay, May 3rd. Okay, yeah. So my family lives not far from where Kyle and Titus and Sean all play. And so I flew out to visit them and be there for my nephew's birthday, and then go to Tablebound. You know, just happened to be on that weekend. Why not go to this tournament? And it was a really cool experience because I got to the event and I sat in the back of so there's this large sort of hall that you all played in, and I sat in the back corner of the hall, and I just watched when I first got there because I'd never been to this community. I didn't know it. And what was interesting was I could see all of the different characters who fit the sort of roles that I'm familiar with. And you see the sarcastic friends all saying hi, and you're like, okay, this is completely like mine. This is totally safe and welcoming and awesome. And it was really lovely to see how healthy and thriving it was over those 2 days, and also where the community was in its evolution as a sort of gaming and like Shatterpoint community as a whole. And it was a really cool way to like observe it from a point of view where I knew nobody when I walked in the room, because it's very rare we go to tournaments where we know positively nobody. And it was a really cool experience, and a credit to all of you guys of it was a great place. And then we played for 2 days there, and like we had a wonderful time. It was really a credit to what the game is able to foster when it's paired with the right people.
Amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So quick segue before we jump into the main topic, but we typically do a recent games played near the start, and I don't think the rest of us, we actually missed this Thursday, so we are relatively gameless, so I'll pass it over to you guys. What is a recent list that you've played? What did you play against? Highlights of the game. Brief.
Lee.
Me first? All right.
Yeah.
During the tournament we had on the weekend, I got to play a couple buy rounds, and there was a list that I've been kind of simmering on for a bit, which was Lumi and Anakin.
I like it.
Lumi is certainly one of my favorite Shatterpoint primaries, just for all the mobility that sort of out of activation mobility that she provides, and she really changes the way that you play Shatterpoint, which I love. And paired with the new way that Anakin works, I was just thinking, oh, like this gives me a fairly consistent way to always be able to move someone out of activation during wounds. And if Anakin manages to get his wounds on a secondary or primary, that's just extra money. And I love Gar. It does hurt a little bit not to have good diceless displacement and not have a good revenge solution, but it's also a good excuse just to take out Anakin. He's such a fun character to put on the board. It was a good time, and I feel like every time I play a game with Lumi, I'm like, I should be doing this way more often. I love Lumi.
I feel the same way every single time.
Yeah. She's good.
What was the rest of the list?
Right, I guess that would help. So in Anakin squad, it was Anakin, Snips, and ARF, who I think now need to be stapled to Anakin. Then in Lumi's squad, it was Crosshair and Wolfpack, and that was mostly because there is a third squad, the Threemier, which was the Bad Batch. So I figured with that sort of Threemier setting, like Bad Batch could kind of pair into either of them.
That's also just probably near identical to what I would run with Lumi. So 100%. Awesome. Jeff, how about you?
I would say it was a game I lost at the tournament, but it was really fun. I was playing against a really good local player, Diego. But I had again, it's an Anakin turn. I don't normally play him, but we were playing Threemier, and so the list was Anakin, Barriss, and ARS with Cad, who we'll be talking about a little bit today, Shakti, and 501st. And it was an Anakin Shatterpoint turn where I was able to, you're going to need to listen to what I'm playing against to be able to follow it, but I was able to wound a Magna Guard and a Wolfpack secondary. Wound a Magna Guard and Dooku that allowed me, so I wounded one, used the dash off of it, then paid to make the second attack, wounded Dooku, then on the first wound, used Cad's dash. The second one used Cad's dash on different Jedi. And I was able to flip 4 points off of 2 Anakin wounds. Which, even though I lost the turn, that turn itself was this feels like Shatterpoint. Anakin Skywalker wounds 2 people. Cad gives 2 dashes out. Anakin gets a dash from it. I'm all over this place. And it was a very much so thematic fun moment that allowed me to win second struggle, but then I still lost the game. But that moment with Anakin was we both took a note as players after the turn. We're like, that was really cool.
Just to be clear, you are saying Kiadi Mundi, not Cad Bane, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Kiadi Mundi.
Okay. Wow, that makes so much more sense.
Sorry. No. Yeah. It's Cad K-A-D, which is Kiadi Mundi. Yeah.
Going down to Magma first? What is this?
No. But he was playing Magna under with Crosshair under Dooku, and on the other side was Hunter, Rex, and Hunter Omega and Wolfpack, which is actually a pretty interesting list.
Yeah. Hunter Dooku, I wouldn't have thought of that. But all right. No,
yeah, I don't know. It's not top meta, but it was
no,
a
but I
challenge.
Don't hate it.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
But it was a great turn, and I was able. So through Anakin's 2, just to put on the board, through Anakin's 2 kills and the ARFs, I got functionally 4 dashes out on the board, let alone his ability to dash everybody. And so it felt great. And so I am a big believer that Mace is better than Anakin, but it was nice to have a moment where you're like, he's still cool.
Jeff, so in the same rant, you have said you played Barriss with Anakin and that Mace is better than Anakin, so I love you. I just want you to know that. Those are correct things. I am a huge fan.
Barriss works best with Vader 1, but that's a whole other point.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yes,
yeah.
Which is why my Barriss is actually painted with a red lightsaber, because when she came out, I was just playing her with Vader 1, and I'm like, well, she fell, so whatever, we'll just use this.
I do remember the timing. I think it was the first week that you brought her out, and then I think it was a week later they did Tales of the Empire, and we got to see Inquisitor bears, and I was like, "Are you a prophet?"
No, I wasn't going to mention that, but yeah, I did do it before she was Inquisitor, and it was like a guess that it would happen, and it felt very cool to be right.
That's amazing. Awesome. I'll post a Longshanks link to that recent event you guys have had too, for people to check it out if they want to. But you both mentioned a specific thing in there, which was Threemier,
Yes.
which will bring us to our main topic for the episode here. And I just want to do kind of just a brief introduction to just Shatterpoint formats before we jump in case, it's somewhat likely that someone could be hearing Threemier for the first time and understanding what we're going through. So Shatterpoint has two main formats. The first one is Showdown, and this is typically going to be your home table Shatterpoint. This is 2 squads against 2 squads. Both players pick the list they want to play a game. You can absolutely run events with Showdown, but you'd be playing the same list for the entire day of that event, if you so choose. That has some trouble in higher competitive play when you get into things like a meta we've recently come out of, where there's maybe some oppressive lists that, hey, if I don't have a counter to this, I'm just going to lose this game. And that doesn't feel great for anybody, but is probably the place that 99% of people started playing Shatterpoint. And it is, you can just play this right out of the core box and have a really great experience. Threemier is where you take 4 separate squads, and as you go to your table with your opponent, you share your list with your opponent, and then each of you picks 2 of those 4 squads to play into that game. This allows you to do some really cool stuff of like looking at your opponent's list and figuring out, hey, what's going to be the best counter here? What's going to be the best for the missions we're both taking? Definitely introduces some of that turn 0 play into Shatterpoint of what list am I taking? What mission options could I have? What's my plan for each of these missions? And that kind of play. Now, for basically since the start of the game, now you could technically have a mix and match of squads in Threemier. You could play an anchor style list where, this is the one squad I'm playing all day, and here's each of the pairings I'm going to play with them. Or you can do what is the most common answer, which is you're just taking 2 completely different lists. These 2 are going to play together, and these 2 are going to play together, which I think everyone kind of agrees as a format kind of dilutes the intent.
It's boring
in some ways, and I think we've seen consistently, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I've seen a list that has won an event that wasn't basically a 2x2.
There have been some lists there have been events that have been won by non-2x2s early on, and more recently I think there have been some, but it's not common. It is generally a credit to like very good players who take creative mixes, and it is more the rarity than it is the norm.
100%.
I was going to say my table bound one was an anchor list.
It was, Titus.
So it does happen.
We're going to talk about that game? You want to talk about that game, Titus?
No, I don't want to talk about the game. It happens.
Yeah.
We have a concrete example.
It does happen. It does happen for sure. And like I said, it's a credit to very talented players who bring
100%.
those things. But to your point, I think that like the real thing there that you nailed though, Kyle, is that like the problem with Threemier as a structure is that very few rosters are deep enough with keywords that you could bring 4 lists, 4 like squads that are going to have the same power level across all of them. And even with the adjustments that we got, it still feels like we're short in, Separatists, there's no way.
Nope.
Empire is kind of there.
Empire can do it with some compromises.
Yeah. Gar is probably there-ish. But like you're making your risky choices in either of those two. And like Rebels is there but isn't. Right? Like where you basically can have like a Spectre Rebel list and then like another Rebel list.
Yeah.
But like in a lot of ways that's just 2 lists that happen to both be Rebels, and if you wanted to like get fancy your first game, or like your turn 2 opponent is some guy who's like, this is my first event and I can't believe I won a game, and you're like, okay, cool. We'll take these 2 things just to be a little bit softer in how hard we punch you. You're not going to mix and match in the same way.
Rebels have a unique problem of a lot of characters named Luke, Han, and Leia.
Yeah, and Lando and R3.
Yeah, one thing I will add there, just as a kind of call it a flaw in the format, or at least something that is uninteresting to look at from an event perspective, is how often that is a 2x2 Premier list where someone plays the other list round one and then never touches it again.
As someone who does this at almost all events,
Understand.
Yeah, I have been guilty of it. I'm not going to shy away from that.
We all have. We've all done
I've
it.
done it. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. But I want to be clear. The other thing that I don't think we talk about when we're criticizing Premiere, and I think this is a great avenue to talk about Threemier because we didn't change this, is I think the mission selection moment is in the wrong step.
Sure is. Yes.
100%.
Because it feels like you, with how much out of activation movement can be factored into some lists versus killing can be factored into others versus counter can be factored into some and control in the others. The fact that I don't know if I'm playing Never Tell or Sabotage before I'm choosing, or if we're like gonna spin the wheel on the madness that is First Contact, like but like I should know that before I'm choosing. Like in Song and in almost every other game I play, you know the scenario before you're choosing that list. And I don't think it's a huge change to do that. And so that is one of those things I really want to see them do, that modification over time. But we did not do that when we were making Threemier because we were really trying to make something that would help bridge players into that sort of like Premiere kind of experience. And I also said something that was really, when we made Premiere.
Oh
Boy. All right. So let's transition into talking about Threemier.
Sure. So it's originally called Lemire. We made it in Q4 of 2023. He conceived of the idea. I'm saying this because he won't be as assertive about how true this is. Lee made the idea. There is not a European version and an American version. There is the Canadian version, which is you take 3 lists. They're list A, B, and C. You must play all 3 of those permutations together in some combination in a 3-round event. You could play a bad version of Lemire where you don't mix and match. That's fine. It's not the cool version. But the intent behind it was to drive players to think about how to make interesting combos spread across the whole game, how to make a selection every round, but then feel locked at the end when you're exposing to your players. And it is a really fun puzzle, but actually one of the things is as the game has grown and gone on, it's a puzzle that we are starting to experience evolving dramatically different from Premiere, where like we have dropped doing Threemier from now till the end of GT season, which for us is sort of November-ish, because the compromises you make in Threemier break your Premier lists, and the practice actually is less valuable. But if I could, I would run Threemier for all events, and we have conceived of ways that you can run Threemier in 6 and 8 round events. Where you could, there's rules to allow it to scale up to larger events while still being that mix and match.
Amazing. Lee, do you have anything to say about this?
Well, I actually just want to give Geoff his props because I think he's being very kind that I created it. It was very much a collaboration. I think it was after Evergreen for you, Geoff, where you came back and you were sharing like, yeah, everyone just kind of runs the 2-2 and you play your weaker list right off the bat and then you just run the list that you clearly have more practice with. And that feeling kind of boring. And so it was actually in response to that where I went home and was just like, how would if I wanted to build something that was going to solve for that, what would it be? And I think it's a real credit to just Shatterpoint of the game that the way their keyword system works, the way that interactions between units work, and just the number of units that you bring, it really just kept coming back to like, oh, I actually think there is a real interesting world where you build sort of that triangle three squad composition, and then making that part of the game. And I think the first clue that was onto something is when I told Geoff about this. Geoff, you went on like this 6-hour journey of just trying to build as many Threemier lists as you could.
Yeah, so like list building is a problem that I have in games. So like right now in X-Wing, I feel very much so like I know what my lists are. In Shatterpoint, I know what my lists are. And so I've recently started list building in MCP again. I don't like MCP at all anymore. I don't want to play it, but like I don't have a game to list build in, and so I'm just like actively starting to do this. And I remember that night like very profoundly where Lee did this, and I went into it's Hunter Strike, right? Is the
Hunter Strike.
Yeah. So I went into Hunter Strike and I was just making Premiere lists, but only filling out 3 and just trying to make these permutations of them and like iterate on them. And it suddenly was at that point it was CIS is really interesting. And actually CIS has really interesting decisions to make around this
Mhm.
because do you want to go all leaders? How do you want to spread your droids? Do you want to incorporate Talzin? And then all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, Dathomirian is an entire option here. You can go Asajj, Maul, Talzin, and then you're like, oh, interesting. And then like as time went on, when like the Mandalorian came out, before we had the Armorer, all of a sudden there was Cad Bane, the Armorer, and Maul, and you're like, you could just do this all scoundrel group and like really live that kind of. So it suddenly just like started clicking with all these ways, and that was an era when. So when it came up, we had just gotten Spectres, and we were starting to play around with other versions of Rebels, and all of a sudden it to the conversation we were having earlier on Han, like Han started making his way into lists that we weren't originally running him in because we were like, oh, he doesn't make the cut, but all of a sudden we could fit him in, and it just for me became this like really fun permutation. And then I remember the first tournament we did it at, we sat down and I remember showing my opponent my 3 lists and their 3 lists, and I was running Hera, Kane, and Leia, and they were running Raiden, Moff, Vader. And it was like normally I would be like, okay, cool, he's gonna take a kill list, I've got a counterpunch list, we're gonna like, this is gonna be fine. But he was running Vader 1, and he took Moff Vader 1, and with his Vader 1 he had Fifth Brother. And so all of a sudden he was like, no, I'm playing push and an objective, I'm playing push and tiebreak, and I'm just gonna try to force you off with tiebreaks. And it was like, oh, cool. Like, you saw that moment, and I decided to play Hera Leia because I was like, he's going to try to just kill me. I'm going to go less killy, and I want to burn Hera Leia early in the tournament. And I lost, and I was just like, oh, this has really interesting, like, round 1 conversations that are inside of it, and that like make you make different choices. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I actually have to take the good list now to like do Hera Leia later. And then I just was like, oh, actually Hera's the problem. I shouldn't be running Hera Leia because like that combo is weak. And so it actually, I find personally, deepens the like well of Shatterpoint of like the cool decisions that can happen inside of it when all of a sudden you're trying to pair 3 across the board instead of 2.
Yeah.
I think it does create more decision points because again with Threemier the default is the 2x2, and then you just take the best things out of the factions of the 2 lists you're taking. Answer is done. And caveat there, we have seen some really creative Threemier lists. They definitely exist, but by and by that is certainly the most common approach. I've done the same thing where I've never played a Threemier event, and I have many Threemier lists saved from a curiosity perspective. How has the community feedback and reaction been to Threemier?
So Lee, do you want to go over how we structure our 3-Mirror events?
Do you want to do that? Because I actually had something else I wanted to talk about regarding.
Sure, yeah. So they're optional is the answer. So the community loves them. So the way that we work is that if you want to just show up and play a strike team, and that's the same that you want to practice that for a GT or whatever, you're welcome to do it. There's no expectations or pressure from us. We don't want new players who only own 2 lists. Yeah. We have a lot of players who like never bought a core box. They just bought 2 lists after the fact and then found some movement templates, borrowed someone else's cardboard, etc. And so we don't want them to feel the pressure to have to play Threemier. We have had recently a couple players who've joined the game who specifically bought into Threemier. Like they bought 3 lists, like Gideon box, Iden box, and Grand Inquisitor box. But it has been generally really positive. People enjoy it. They make interesting things. What's fun is that our Gar players, we have very different flavors. Where there's like very Obi-Wan hunker centric Gar players, whereas we have very Jedi centric Gar players. We have some people who like toe the line between both. I'm really excited to see what Boss does, because I think all of a sudden we're gonna have a lot of like Obi Hunter Boss stuff, but then also Mace Hunter Boss stuff with very different secondaries and supports under both those lists. They're going to go in dramatically different directions, which I think is just going to be great for the game.
You can pump Delta Squad directly into my veins. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to it. As far as community feedback goes, I was actually... I was, to be clear, I was delighted when it was as well received as it was in our local club, and I would have been happy for it to just stop there. I cannot tell you how personally giddy with excitement I was when I saw a random post on Reddit where someone was like,
oh yeah, I remember this day.
Yeah. And I was like,
We razzed the shit out of you.
I was so embarrassed, but also so like, oh my God, like it's so weird to feel like I did a thing that people are doing. And like I personally didn't do anything to advertise it. I would actually say that's one of the things that I am really bad at, and I'm so glad I've got someone like Geoff to help me out with community outreach when it comes to like getting events out there. But I was just so surprised when I saw like a random Reddit post where they were like, my local event is running Threemier. What the hell's Threemier? And I was like, surely this is a different Threemier that they're talking about. And yeah, it's just been really lovely to see the Shatterpoint community as a whole. Like, I think Hunker Strike did eventually put in a Threemier module into their code, and seeing other events run Threemier, it's really just been quite incredible. I personally think it's a great thing. I love that there are other people that have started European Threemier and American Threemier, because it's nice to see people take an idea.
I mean, technically, European Threemier is great because it's the correct Threemier.
Indeed, if only with the wrong name.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it really is just so incredibly lovely to see a thing that I put together and then watch other people be like, yeah, this is a great idea, and just take it and run with it and be like, what? What a strange thing to have happen. The other bit of feedback that I had, which I really loved, was that I think kind of going back to the 2v2 squad structure, I think that one of the things we're not talking about there when you're like, okay, I'm going to build like a solid 2-squad Rebel and a solid 2-squad Imperial, is that it doesn't leave a lot of room for the Landos, the I know Moors, the Hondos, where it's like, you could bring one of them and kind of like, oh, I'll make Lando an Imperial and play him in my Imperial list, but just play another Imperial then, right? And I think Threemier is this weird world where it increases the value on those primaries or those units where they don't necessarily belong into one particular faction, but they do something for a bunch of people, and it sort of like elevates their value in a Threemier structure where it's like, oh yeah, I could play Lando and have one list be Rebel and one squad be Rebel and one squad be Imperial, and Lando in the middle. And that would work just fine. And you might have a harder time with that if it was like a 2-on-2 structure where it's like, I don't know where this necessarily fits if you really want to do it, when you could just bring 2 good Rebels and 2 good Imperials. So that's fine.
Yeah, I think about player psychographics in a lot of what Threemier answers for. So what Lee's really talking about is that you'll see that in like Titus, for example. I'm going to give you a little psychographic. Titus is a Johnny, right? Like Titus is a Johnny through and through. I met him and I was like, you're a Johnny. I got it. I lost to him at Table Bound and I was like, yep, I lost to you, and you are more happy that your anchor list with the goofiness that you made worked than you are with this win.
Yep, guilty as charged.
Yeah, no. Clear as day, right? And the thing is that there are Johnnies who play Premier and are listening to what Lee just said, and they're like, he's totally wrong. I can play an anchor list and be totally happy. And you're like, yes, but only if you're a Johnny. Spikes and Timmy's like won't seek that sort of behavior out, and they won't solve in that way, and now those things fall off. And so I think one of the things to remember about what Lee's talking about is that it's a way to get all players to suddenly pick up models they wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards, and it's a way to get way more diversity of play, because when you get that in, you suddenly have those Gar players who want to bring something different. And especially the scoundrel space gets so interesting in Threemier, because you can go in all kinds of different directions, and we are seeing that in our community, and it's fantastic for that in a big way.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I had an interesting question. So when we think about Threemier, and then you mentioned that you're having a GT in November, how many of the Threemier players are interested in adding a 4-squad to prepare for a GT, and then B, how are you helping those players transition into going into 4 squads and maybe potentially choosing an anchor or a 2x2?
Yeah, so great question. Matt LaRose is somebody we all already mentioned in this call, and we actually did this last year after, I think it was after LVO this year? No, it was before then. But basically, so the way that people practice for GTs is they actually don't scale up. They scale down in Threemier, so they only bring 2 lists, or 2 strike teams. And that's basically, I'm just practicing half for this tournament. I'm going to play 3 reps with half and just get that experience. But the thing that Matt built for us was, I used to have one, I cleaned my office recently, but he made this really cute little checklist. And this was actually one of the side events that Lee organized, where this checklist was the game start rules checklist. So like, show up to the table, show your opponent your list, tell your opponent the mission you brought, roll dice, determine priority, choose table side, and all this. So the event was basically both of you had your list, and you got a check mark if you did everything on your list in the correct order. And if you didn't do it, you lost a check mark. And at the end, for every one you got wrong, you got fewer points. And that was basically like the point value when we did it. So for Premier, we did that in combination with people taking just one pair of strike teams to practice for a Premier event. We have done full Premiers to train for events as well, but for us with Threemier, it's a very weird dynamic if you let someone scale up to 4, because the way that our community sort of solves a lot of this is like, it's very casual through mission selection and table side and this kind of stuff. And so it doesn't create like an authentic Premier experience, and it would feel too forced. We've generally gone in and said, this is a Premier prep event because, you know, Evergreen's coming up, or LVO or Adepticon or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you had to have a firm separation between the two.
And even in the case of Premier prep events, players are always allowed to bring just 2 strike teams and play that if they want to.
Gotcha.
Just because it's such a gate for new players that sometimes they get very intimidated or don't want to participate in everything.
Do you find players sometimes struggle with the, like, which of the 2x2 do I pick once they transition to that?
Well, so actually, I've been doing a lot of this conversation in the last couple of weeks as people have been switching their headspace to Premier. So, Lee and I very much so come from like the Matt Bronson school of thinking about this. Because he's a far better player than us, and we talk to him a lot about like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And for those who don't know, Matt Bronson was the runner-up at Worlds this year, and is a former like world caliber Legion player, and is just very, very smart and talented guy. And so one of the things that's interesting is that a lot of players I'm discovering haven't used the same methodology that Matt's been using, that I've been using for the whole time, which is that I have 2 lists, and those lists have defined scenarios that I'm playing them against. And I'm picking the list based on my opponent's scenario. Because if they win the dice roll, they're likely going to pick their scenario. And if I win the dice roll, I can pick their scenario. And so I am choosing my list based on, okay, are we likely going to play Sabotage, Shifting, Never Tell, or is this person a Maniac and we're playing First Contact? And then which of those lists am I going to bring in relationship to that? And one of the things that has inadvertently done for us is a lot of list chickening, a lot of that kind of solutioning just stopped happening. Because you're playing to the scenario, you're not playing to the opponent's picks. Because especially in bigger tournaments like at an LVO and Adepticon, where you don't know a lot of the people you're playing against, you can't get into a lot of the head games. You don't know where they're going to be at about stuff. And so you have to make different calls. And so for me, I very much so try to pick lists about that. I will change that up in cut occasionally. Like I literally will have my pre-cut version of the variants and my post-cut, just so that the people could start to develop metadata on you at a tournament, and then post-cut you can swap so that you can counterpunch. But like that gets into very much so like head games on head games kind of stuff. But for most of our players, they're starting to adopt that position because it's just helping them be like, cool, I have a much cleaner decision framework. And at that point, it's just like, that's my decision making framework, and execution of the delta. Counter punching on list is sort of not going to solve it for me.
Yeah, I think mission is the right place to start at the very least for that decision. I think no matter what format you're talking about. I think there's some obvious exceptions to that. Again, previous meta, you have I take my revenge list. This is how this works because I have to. But we live in a much more open space today than we did a few months ago. So I can say this conversation has me excited to give Threemier an honest try. To be frank, these two have been trying to convince me of that for some time.
Here's my hot off the presses idea. Here's my hot off the presses idea. Lee doesn't even know this yet.
Oh god.
So here's my thought for because we stopped doing Threemier till November. So here's my thought for what will now be the November Threemier event after we do the GTLB at the start of the month. I think we should do Threemier, but you also make it so that round 1 everyone plays Shifting, round 2 everyone plays Sabotage, and round 3 everyone plays Never Tell.
I've honestly been looking at this as well. Yeah, completely independently. I want to do an event where the objectives are set ahead of time.
Now, if you really want to be maniacs, what you do is you then make a 4th round, and everyone plays first contact. So final table is first contact.
The last, like, it's a 7-hour event.
How do I kick Jeff out of this call?
But I'm a like, and I don't think you want to reveal the sequence ahead of time and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things is coming from X-Wing, I will say the shared scenarioing is a really like it makes your games are interesting. B, you know you're gonna have to play through all of them. You're gonna have to prepare for all of them. You're gonna have to recognize all of them. And see, the thing that's interesting about it is it creates a much tighter context when you're talking about the event with friends afterwards. Because you'd be like, oh, we were playing scenario 2. You're like, what were you playing? You're like, I'm not sure. But everyone now knows, like, oh, that was shifting. Round 2 was all, everyone played shifting round 2. And it leads to a lot more conversation. And I think it also leads to more people playing the different scenarios and getting better practice. Because the thing we really want to think about our monthlies is they're just practice. Like, that's all this is. Like, who wins and who loses, it genuinely doesn't matter, especially if you do raffle pricing. You're just going for reps. And so it's like, trying to create an environment that's going to foster those reps is definitely the thing I want to try to push for us with that.
So I'm looking at our schedule here that I put up for the second half of the year, and we do have what is supposed to be a premier format tournament on Saturday, September 20th at Critical Hit that I might have to make some modifications to.
Let's do it.
And just say, hey, listen,
We will discuss.
we're all diving in the pool together. Let's go.
So I think you guys just touched on it, and I think you started off the conversation with you have a GT coming up, and you're kind of changing that into premier practice. Because frankly, I have been the naysayer of the three of us here on, I don't want to do this because I want more premier practice. And it's not because of what I think the better format is. That's actually irrelevant. But this is the format I have to play when I'm traveling to events.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And as it stands, I feel like I don't get enough premier practice as it is. And taking away a day of that each month or however often we're having events is a tough sell for me.
Let it go. Let it go.
But I can't even bring that up as a con because I think we've actually just comfortably addressed that throughout.
I mean, yeah, I think you can play your premier practice as a part of it. And like, to be clear, at our events, they're casual enough that if someone literally they played A-list, like they did what Sean was implying was they played AB and then they played CD. Like, I don't think we'd give a shit. You're there playing games, you're getting reps, like that's fine.
And I think that approach is what has sold me on this of like, hey, this is not rock solid terms.
Yeah. Like honestly, the only tournament that should matter in my mind for Shatterpoint every year is the World Championship.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Agreed.
that's
Agreed.
the one that's cool. That's the one that's interesting. And like, I'm not going next year, but like, that's a tournament that matters, which is why I remember when I got to final table with Titus, I was just this like, he was excited. He was like, no one from here has won one of these events yet. Cause you guys kept getting robbed by out of towners. And Titus was like, I'm going to do it. And I was just like, all right, cool, man. Like, you seem really hyped about this. And it was it didn't matter. And then when he won, he was just like, this mattered so much to him. And you're like, perfect. Like, this is exactly the conclusion we wanted of these events. But even Table Band, which was a cool event and tons of people and really awesome, like, it's just all reps for Worlds. Because, like, no one's going to remember in 5 years the lightsaber that's behind Titus. He'll remember that. No one else is going to remember who won Table Bound 2025. But, like, everyone will remember every World's winners. And I can tell you that as, like, an X-Wing player of 10 years, I could name all of the world champions for X-Wing. I couldn't name you the guys who won the different intergalactic championships I went to, or system opens, or hyperspace finals, or like, because that's, it's just not what matters. Those are just reps. They're just reps.
I'd say maybe there's a few GTs throughout the year that like an LVO as the only one on the top of my head. Okay, cool. That's a cool thing. But Worlds is the
I think
culmination,
it's cool.
right?
I'm not trying. Like, I have won a GT. Yeah. It's cool. It's a lovely thing to have. But like, I always think of Sean McVay, who's a football coach, like, who went to the Super Bowl, lost to Bill Belichick, and then went back and won. And the feeling is like, and Titus, actually, here's a question. I'm going to describe this feeling, and I want to know if this was true for you. But like, winning those events is cool. It is also incredibly fleeting. And what happens after you win is you go, well, I just want to play again.
What's next?
Yeah. Like it is like, doesn't crossing that hill like doesn't matter. Like last year, our good friend Li and I's good friend won the last X-Wing World Championship. Kalen won, and Kalen won And when he came home, he was like, we greeted him at the airport. We had all these goofy signs. The CBC did a little, like, took these photos of it and stuff. And it was great. But afterwards, Kalen was just this like, hey, are we playing next Thursday? And I was like, yep. Because that was it. And he'd spent 10 years to try to win the World Championship. He finally did it. And then all he wanted to do was play X-Wing on Thursday. Because, like, the only thing that matters is that big tournament. And otherwise, you're just playing to have fun. You know, like, everything should just be playing to have fun.
I think that is a testament to love of the game.
Even the big tournament, you should still be coming back and saying, I just want to play more.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, why are you playing?
Yeah. Totally. So I think you can sneak your Premier in, but also, like, note that we are abandoning it for the next few months because we want to go do this. But afterwards, I think for us, like, Threemier or season is going to be that sort of, like, post-December to May block before the new GT season starts and everything. That, for us, I think is going to be when we're going to go into it and doing, like, a lot of our pushing for it.
I like that approach.
Yeah, to maybe sprinkle that in, you know, because, like, during the wintertime, events are...
They slow down anyway.
Yeah, they slow down, lower attendance, that kind of
for
stuff.
you guys. Our winter is our, like, peak season.
Nice.
So that's really interesting. So our summers are normally our quiet one at times. Last month was an anomaly for us, but normally statistically we see low, because in Vancouver everyone suddenly goes camping, they go traveling. Like, it's very much so this is a city where, like, it's not raining, I will get outside and do things. But then in winter it rains every day, so everyone just stays inside and plays games. And travel is not an issue because it's just rain. It's not snow. You're not stuck in that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think for us is Threemier will be very much so in that fourth quarter window, or sorry, that fourth quarter to Q1 window for us. But I also, it's like what you've alluded to, Kyle. I really want AMG for 1 year to try Threemier at the premium level. I think it would be a much cooler experience. The tournament data would be so interesting, and I would love just one Adepticon. They go out and say, hey, you know, it starts May 4th. That's the beginning of the new season, and this year we're doing Threemier. Or they'll come up with their own name for it or whatever, and they run. I think it would be so sweet.
Yeah, I'd settle for honestly any just adjustment to the tournament playback and just spice it up a little at the very least.
Something to mix up the list building, even, because then you see completely different units, like you guys have been saying this whole time.
So, if anyone from AMG is listening, I hereby bequeath this with no expectation of return. It would actually genuinely be such a feather in my hat if they were like, "Can we use this?" I'd be like, "Yes, please use this. It's fine. I don't need anything in return. Just please take it. I love this game and I want to see it do well. So please take it."
The off live on coordinated fire. I love it.
Yeah. I will say one thing is we've talked a little bit about. The other thing is scaling it, right? So we've talked about how to get it to work for a 6-round or like a 4-round event or a 6-round event, or even 8. And so just so everyone understands, so in a 3-rounder, you have lists ABC, you play AB in any combination in any sequence, doesn't matter, but you have to play AB, AC, and BC in a 3-rounder. If you go to 4 rounds, the way that we think you should do it is it's that same 3-round format, and in the 4th round, it's whatever combo you want. It's just mixed to whatever you want. If you want to do 5 rounds, you can do the same thing. But the rule we would starting to think about putting in is you can't play any combo more than twice.
Yes.
So you couldn't triple up into that 5th round. 6 rounds, every combo has to be played twice. Super easy to do. If you do 7, it's the same thing, but you can't play any combo more than 3 times in a 7-rounder. And then in an 8-rounder, you actually revert it, and you probably run it like a 6-rounder, where you have to play everything twice, and then there's 2 free-for-all rounds, where you can play sort of whatever you want at the end, with or without the cut. And I just think there's all kinds of permutations you can do to it in that way and work on it. And that also gets into our separate thing, which is that we're really big believers in cut or all Swiss, no cut. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think Threemier also is able to thrive, because you can get enough rounds, you get the permutations in it to be able to do that. And RGT last year, or this past year in April, was all Swiss, no cut. And it was awesome. Like, it was a ton of fun. Everyone played. We had 0 drops. Everyone stayed the whole time, and it really was really interesting and fun. And so,
yeah, I will say, Geoff, that you and I had this conversation the dinner between day 1 and day 2 at TBO, and I was pretty strong on the top cut side of that conversation. And then we got to the end of day 2 for TBO, and you and Titus were the only people left to celebrate. You guys 1st and 2nd place. And it was immediately then where I was like...
We hugged a lot. There was a lot of hugging.
Yeah, and again, was nice, but like the fanfare of that win and everybody celebrating the end of this event just was taken away. And it was in that moment where I was like, huh. Now, I think I would treat GT and TBO differently still, but I think I'm very close to being swayed for TBO for next year.
I mean, you could make an 8-round Threemier event for Tablebound next year.
Do it.
Planting seeds.
Awesome. So, Lee, you sent me a link to the document for the Threemier style. If anyone wants to go through the full rules, how the format works, the document's going to be in the show notes. So take a look there. If anyone's listening and says, yeah, I want to run one of these, you can absolutely check it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
And just because for a teaser for a future episode, you guys in the future can also have Lee and Matt on, and they can talk about Hutball.
I've been hearing about
Hutball
this.
Really, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but basically I used to play SWTOR, and Hutball was clearly the best part of SWTOR, and I was really jazzed about the idea of making a key operation where the objective moves and can be passed. So Hutball was just a very natural development of it, and we've actually made rules for Hutball and tried to...
And we play tested them, and they work, and they're pretty fun, and it's an alt format we run sometimes, and yeah.
Can you
Sweet.
send us a document on that? Because I want to take a look.
Yeah.
I'll patch that over as well, and you can check it out.
Send it over. We're long into this episode at any point at this point. First up, I want to thank you guys for jumping on. Much appreciated. Again, we really wanted to have our first guests on the cast be Canadian, and the BC community is really next up for community sizes for across the country. So it's been incredible for what you guys have been able to do for the game and build. And again, as has been mentioned, that is a full community effort to make that happen. But I really appreciate you guys coming on. This has been amazing. I think I speak for the three of us that we would love to have you guys on again sometime.
Really?
This has been great. Where can people find you guys online?
Jeff, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Moosebach on Discord. This is the easiest way to find me. As Sean unfortunately experienced this week, I don't check Facebook very often, so please message me on Discord.
That's all right. We made it work. We made it work, buddy.
And I think I'm Rise Over Run on Discord, and you can probably find me in the Pacific Northwest Tabletop Gaming Discord. I'm usually bumbling around the event organizer chat there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for jumping on. Jeff, Lee, it's been a pleasure. As always, join our Discord. That'll be in the show notes as well. Thanks, everyone.
Bye!
Good night.